Allah be fucking merciful. This Jesus Christ, Allah be fucking merciful. This mythos that, oh, it's super recovery. If you're not hyper amazing fucking recovery, there isn't recovery shooting out of your ass, you're gonna die. Fuck.
And on that note, I think we need to do episode 120 of the Q&A, folks. So if you like the Q&A, go hit the like button right about now. Otherwise, refer back to the previous message. Question number 1. What kind of cardio do you do? I haven't heard you talking about cardio before. I've talked about cardio a lot. Dude, I'm like 265 pounds by the time I get to the gym. If you count my clothes, if you count my breakfast in my stomach, if you count all the water in me. People who are 260 pounds don't run, right? We don't run. So I walk on the treadmill on an incline setting. And if I can't find one of those, maybe I'll go on an elliptical, but it has to be a low impact modality to spare my knees and feet. Do you have the 8mm GymPin or the 10mm GymPin? I have 2 of each, just in case there's a machine with 2 stacks and I need one for each side. However, to be actually helpful here, even though I've answered this question a million times, the 10mm Kingpin has the longest loading sleeve, but the 8mm pin will fit in the most machines. It just might be loose, so you might have to wrap a paper towel around the end in some machines. Can you make a post talking about different bars and how they can affect the lift? No, definitely not doing that. I mean, it's because that's information that pretty much every experienced lifter already knows, and there's just way too many specialty bars for me to just start listing them off. However, in general, for powerlifting purposes, a squat bar is going to be an extra thick bar, usually 30 millimeters in diameter, maybe sometimes 32 millimeters in diameter, and this makes it less likely to bend so that when you squat, it's more stable and there's less whip. A bench bar is just a normal power bar, usually 28, 29 millimeters in diameter, and that's a good balance between being stable for the weights that you'll be able to bench press, but thin enough to get good force transfer into the bar, and deadlift bars are super thin and bendy, thus making it easier off the ground. Is consuming over 200 grams a day of maltodextrin just asking for blood sugar problems? I guess I just don't understand why you would be taking in this much carb powder. Like, can you really not eat more real food? Unless you're like a 275-pound bodybuilder on 7,000 calories a day, why do you need to be consuming this much carb powder? Are you even hitting all of your micronutrients? Like, most people don't even have enough calories to have a good micronutrient-dense diet on that much carb powder. Eat real food. Are pendlay rows staying in your rotation for a while? No, I personally just don't like pendlay rows. Like, I don't find them fun. And the straight bar row hurts my arms for some reason, the joints in my arms. Not exactly bicep tendonitis, but the other side, which I don't normally get. And I just find that pendlay rows, my performance is really tied to neural drive. So if I'm not neurologically fresh that day, I tend to lose reps. I don't like it. How to decide whether to quit or whether to continue when hard work doesn't pay off. So I think this depends on what context of life we're talking about, because for fitness, I think this is the completely wrong frame. Unless you were talking about this from the frame of trying to earn a living, in which case you really need to do an analysis, a risk to reward analysis. Like, how much time are you going to have to put in? When is the time horizon for seeing this business be successful or not? But if we're just talking about like fitness from the perspective of getting healthier, in better shape, it's the wrong frame. You should be doing this because you enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it and it's not enhancing your life at the level of effort that you are currently putting in, then the decision has already made itself, because it's just a hobby. Why would you continue persisting with a hobby at a level that's making your life worse when it provides no tangible monetary benefit? Doesn't make sense. In the fitness game, man, everybody's going to have plateaus in terms of strength, in terms of muscle mass, and you're just going to have to try and figure out how to get past that plateau. And if you're doing this because you enjoy it, that's all part of the process, and it can actually be fun, because now you have to go out and do research, you have to field test different methods, maybe special exercises, new modalities, and you have to see if they work, and figuring out what works is part of the fun. But if you're only doing all of this to try and get laid or something, just go say hi and tell her your name, bro. Have you ever had a hernia? No. And even if I had, how is that going to help you? For the love of God, people, if you have an injury, go see a medical professional. Because believe it or not, I am not a doctor or a physical therapist, and I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So no, I can't help you with your injuries. How are you at carnival games? I tend to suck at things like the first time I try them, especially hand-eye coordination stuff. But if you give me enough tries, I get good at it really, really fast. So, I don't know, I guess if I played them long enough, I'd probably be good. In recent years, the prevailing thought was that any set over RPE 6 or 7 should be considered equivalent stimulus for hypertrophy. In your experience, how big of a difference is there between sets that are RPE 6 and RPE 10? Well, the more recent literature on this subject definitively shows that you do, in fact, get more stimulus the closer to failure that you get. Even going as far as actually hitting failure on your final rep provides a tiny bit more stimulus than going to RPE 10. So this is no longer the prevailing thought in the evidence-based community, and frankly, for anyone that's trained for more than a freaking year or so, then you already knew failure sets were way more stimulative than RPE 6 sets, which are barely harder than warm-ups. Are there any lifts that you find it more difficult to push to failure on, mentally, physically, etc.? I think anything in the 15 to 30 rep range is harder to push to failure physically on because you need a higher pain threshold as well as some degree of work capacity. But in particular, stuff that's short biased like leg extensions or chest flies is particularly brutal, machine chest flies that is. Mentally, I guess for me, that would be squats, free weight squats in particular, just because, if you get stuck at the bottom, even with the safety set up correctly, you can still get hurt. So squats. My weights are increasing on only 4 sets of chest per week. Is there any need to increase volume? Well, no, you don't need to increase volume because as long as your weights are going up, that is proof that you are above your minimum effective volume for growth. Now, that said, just because you found the bare minimum amount of work that you need for some progress, that doesn't mean that you're doing the optimal amount of work to get your best progress. So it just depends on if you want to experiment with potentially getting faster rates of progression. But the risk there is that you add more than is beneficial and slow your rate of progression. Alrighty, folks, that is it for today's Q&A. If you are American, I hope you enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. I will be back on Wednesday to do probably my last training session before a 4 to 5 day active rest. Maybe longer if I can physically hold myself out of the gym for that long. But I will be going for a 605 conventional deadlift. My PR at that weight is actually 7. Last time I did conventional deadlifts in my program, I got 585 for 6. Second workout, I got 605 for 7. Hopefully I can recreate that and tie my all-time PR, but we shall see. I'm fairly beat up at the moment. So let's do the ads. If you enjoy the Q&A, please remember to like the Q&A when it comes out on YouTube's. If you'd like to become a more substantial supporter of the Q&A, you can become a Patreon for $1 a month. If you'd like to work with me directly for coaching, shoot me a DM on Instagram for fastest reply. And if you'd like to check out some of my older ebooks, there's a link in my bio on Instagram and a link in the description box on YouTube. But until Wednesday, my friends, enjoy the beginning of your week if you can.